Alright, hello everyone and welcome to AEW Discussion. I'm your host in AEW Tuesdays, Dougie Doug. In today's episode, I'm going to be discussing Dynamite, August 30th, 2023 episode. In this episode of Dynamite, well, it was the first episode of TV coming off the heels of a historic pay-per-view at Wembley Stadium, All In, and well, there's no rest for AEW coming off of this show because coming up this Sunday they have the All Out pay-per-view. So this show was, I would have decided to say scrambling to put the card together, but they certainly got the step in when it came to putting together that card. And with that, we're going to get right into the action, starting with promo from Chris Jericho on the heels of his loss to Will Ospreay at All In, and this pretty much centered around him and Sammy Guevara. He apologized to Guevara, whom he shoved away, falling into defeat. Now, how sincere that apology was, maybe not all that sincere, kind of a half backhanded apology. And then these two kind of went back and forth with some personal jabs before agreeing to set aside their differences and deciding to go after the AEW Tag Team titles starting next week. So no follow-up on the Don Gallows storyline, no mention of the frustration Jericho has been dealing with, according to the commentary team. Instead, Jericho decided to manipulate Guevara to stay on his side so he could chase gold. Now, the Jericho-Guevara stuff is still good, and hopefully it will further elevate one of the more talented young guys on the roster, but it would have been nice to see either of the other stories which have, which were actively going on, which were stories that were going on prior to All Out, resolved in some way. There is, time to circle back to those stories, but it's also likely that they get lost in the shuffle. And then you have the New Japan Pro Wrestling, or the NJPW Strong Openweight Championship match, Kingston versus Yuta. And unlike Moxley in the show opening match, Kingston and Yuta looked like guys who had been through a Stadium Stampede match. Kingston, though, would fight through the pain and successfully retain his title, and was a good physical match. Afterwards, when Claudio Castagnoli would make his way to the ring to basically scoop up Wheeler Yuta and take him away, well, Kingston was there to hold with him, but Claudio would not even acknowledge Kingston by looking back at him. So the career-long issues between them still continuing. Honestly, it seems unlikely those ever get resolved, but it does make for good television. A good match, like I said, but and once again hinting that there is more to come between Kingston and Castagnoli. And they safe to say this match was the first real hit, in-ring hit of the night. And then you have a promo from Adam Cole, and while Adam Cole might have gained a friend, a best friend, a brother, whatever you want to call him in MJF, he might have lost, seemingly has lost 3 others in Roderick Strong, Matt Taven, and Mike Bennett. Strong in the Kingdom confronted King in an in-ring promo, taking exception once again to his newfound friendship with MJF and what they consider to be his abandonment of them. Now, Strong's never been the greatest promo, but in his recent role of his recent character with the neck brace, it's been pretty great. It's been pretty good, I should say. The revelation that he will enter the Grand Slam tournament and win it and challenge MJF for the world title, it's a nice booking call, and it adds a story to that tournament. Now, is it likely that Strong wins? Depends on who else is in the tournament, so I think TBD on that one. And you would think the Kingdom would be in the Battle Royal to determine the next challengers for the Ring of Honor Tag Team titles, but it does not seem like they are. And then I checked the Wikipedia page for the card, and it says Dark Order's challenging, which is probably a spoiler from Rampage, because Rampage is pre-taped, so I guess not, which again, it doesn't really make any sense, but it is what it is. And then the show concludes with an international championship match. Orange Cassidy defending against Penta El Cerro Miro, and Cassidy successfully retained his title here and will defend that title once again at All Out against Jon Moxley. A match that's been teased for weeks, well before there was Stadium Stampede or any of the other chaotic brawls that involved these two and their friends. That match might be headlining the show. A show that seemingly up until this point has been lacking in star power and stakes, but it should have enough. But this match between Cassidy and Moxley should have enough heat to elevate it. Now the match with Penta was strong and saw Cassidy continue to portray a battered, beaten champion, which honestly, I'm starting to think that might be less of a character and more of a real thing. I mean, it is a character, but more of a real thing too, because he has got to be feeling some type of way getting out of bed in the morning. But he continues to do just enough to escape each title defense with his title reign intact. Defiant at the close of the show, he spoke for the first time at length and added to the gravity of the moment to help put over his upcoming title defense against Moxley. So in conclusion, AEW has its work cut out for it Wednesday night, or had its work cut out for it Wednesday night, not only following up on a monumental night of action at All In, but also putting together the card for the All Out pay-per-view this Sunday. And honestly, when you have a pay-per-view a week after another pay-per-view, especially one like All In, it's hard to not make that next pay-per-view not look like an afterthought. And the results in this episode of Dynamite, in regards to trying to not make All Out look like an afterthought, were varied. Matches were announced, but whether or not it's destination viewing kind of depends on how you feel about the card. On paper, there's some few obvious bangers like Omega versus Takeshita, but it seems like AEW has, there's a lack of urgency that AEW pay-per-views typically have. Granted, there are some outside factors that have affected the show, like the least of which being the very real glass of a car windshield, but it may be worth revisiting the idea of holding a pay-per-view event 1 week after a huge show in Wembley Stadium next year. I know Tony Khan he's already said he's going to kind of run it back, the same setup, but again, I've never been a fan of one pay-per-view with the other. It makes zero sense. Pay-per-views are supposed to be a big deal, and especially for AEW when you're paying, well, I'm paying like $50 for a pay-per-view. I'm assuming that's about the same price for people using US dollar. So if I'm paying $50 for one pay-per-view, and then the next week I'm paying $50 for another one, that's like $100 in 2 weeks. It better be a great show. I better be able to get my money's worth. So that's why I just don't understand why you can't space it out a little bit more. Give yourself more time to put on a show worthy of that $50, of the consumer's $50. The main event of this week's Dynamite was strong, physical outing from Kingston and Yuta, and some storyline development in the women's division. So, solid show overall. And with that, that will conclude this episode of AEW Discussion. If you enjoyed this episode, be sure to hit that like button down below.